So the Lions decide we're all set on Mike McDaniel the same way they were all set on adding an edge rusher across from Aiden Hutchinson. The same way they were all set during the draft the last couple of years. We know what we're doing. We don't need to draft based on needs. We're gonna take best player available. We think Sione Vaki's best player available. We think this guy's really gonna help our special teams. Whatever, man. I think sometimes Brad Holmes' pride gets in the way. I think sometimes Brad Holmes' ego gets a little bit in the way. And this culture that they've created and the tremendous amount of success, like credit to him, tremendous amount of success that the Lions had in such a short amount of time, in a way I think sometimes gets to Brad Holmes and he feels almost invincible. Like every move he makes is going to work out. We've seen some massive, catastrophic failures the last couple of years. Ennis Rakestraw comes to mind. Giovanni Manu comes to mind. Miles Frazier comes to mind. That's just the draft. Bringing back Glasgow ended up being a mistake as well. Are we going to look back and think to ourselves, not signing Mike McDaniel to be the offensive coordinator and essentially telling him, not a good fit. Thanks for coming in and interviewing. We're all good. Is that going to be something that we look back upon at the end of next season? After a full year of Drew Petzing and watching Mike McDaniel from a distance out in Los Angeles, is that something that we are going to regret doing? I fear the answer could be yes. Now, Brad Holmes has a chance to make up for all of it if he just fixes the offensive line, starts going balls to the walls, gets super aggressive in the draft, gets an offensive tackle in the first round. Who knows? It gets a guard in the second, and all of a sudden this offensive line is completely rebuilt. Taylor Decker ends up getting cut. They sign a center with that extra $18 million. Drew Petzing's life's going to be pretty awesome if he does all that stuff and hits a home run in terms of how he rebuilds this offensive line this offseason. However, if he doesn't do that, and we're asking Drew Petzing to kind of elevate players, there's not really a ton of evidence that he can do that. I mean, he did it with Brissett. I guess there a little bit is with Brissett and Michael Carter, who we didn't really think were going to have these incredible seasons. And then obviously the tight end too, Trey McBride. So maybe there is a little bit of evidence that he can do that. But I mean, if I'm watching Mike McDaniel and Justin Herbert and Harbaugh absolutely tear up the AFC next year, yeah, then I'm going to be pissed.
From the fit thing, did they think John Morton was a good fit? You know, like that's the part that I'm like a little bit concerned about, because if they,
great point,
I question their fit beliefs, you know, because clearly they thought John Morton was a great fit. That guy threw a screen pass on 3rd and 10 every single time. You know, that guy didn't give Jamison Williams the football
after repeatedly saying he was going to.
How is that a good fit? So that's the part that I'm worried about. It's not even the fact that like, oh, Drew Petzing, I'm out on him. I'm just out on like,
I like Drew Petzing.
Is the ideology behind their hiring of these coordinators just off, you know?
And honestly, Kyle, here's the thing. John Morton was a terrible hire. So was Anthony Lynn.
Anthony Lynn was in my Twitter notifications this morning. What was up with him? He just got a job somewhere, I think, right?
He was interviewing to be a head coach somewhere too. I read this as well. I forget the team.
He's a finalist for the Bills coaching job.
Oh my God, yeah, that's right. I saw that at like 6 a.m. I couldn't believe it. But Lions fans, like, don't forget about that one. That was a bad hire too, and that shouldn't just be like, oh yeah, but that's way in the past. That's now twice. In 3 different times that they had to find an offensive coordinator, twice that it totally failed. Between Lynn, who was fired in the middle of his first season, and Morton, who was not fired, but soft fired in the middle of his first season as well. Ben Johnson was just here, right? It's not like you had to do some external search for Ben Johnson. He was just here. The 2 times you had to do an external search, miserable fail.
Well, in the Anthony Lynn thing, too, it shows that they've at least had the capability, because we talked about like just bringing in a guy that's been a play caller or head coach somewhere else for just has the experience of doing it, and yet they go with the kind of under the radar guy with John Morton and with Drew Petzing. Anthony Lynn was coming off of being a head coach, so it's not like they just don't do that. So it's like if their whole excuse for Mike McDaniel was like, oh well, he could get a head coaching job somewhere else. What, you don't think if Anthony Lynn came to the Lions and rocked out that he wasn't going to get another chance? Like, I don't know. I just think that their thought process, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I certainly am questioning it.
How can you not?
Yeah.
There's been multiple failures, and they essentially publicly told Mike McDaniel, we'd rather go with someone else because we think they're a bigger fit. The more concerning part about that was the part of the Jeff Darlington report where he said, well, Dan Campbell actually really liked Mike McDaniel. What? Dan Campbell liked him, but the Lions didn't think he was a good fit? Is there some sort of crack between the Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell relationship? Is this an ownership thing? Is this someone stepping in and being like, no, we're going to run the football smash mouth style, not this east to west style that Mike McDaniel has somewhat adopted? We don't really have the answers, and odds are we're never going to get the answers because the Lions keep things close to the chest. But I think sometimes, again, the pride and the ego gets aside. It's like, no, we're going to do things our way. We want someone who's going to do things our way, do exactly as we tell them, rather than bring in someone with a really creative mind that could maybe challenge Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell in the way that they think about the offense, because Mike McDaniel would have done that. I mean, he was the most talented, sought-after offensive coordinator this cycle for a reason. Drew Petzing was not one of those players, not one of those candidates for a reason. I'm not going to sit here and tell you because we didn't know who Drew Petzing was means he's going to be a failure. I like some of the things that I've read about this guy. I'm also not going to pretend like I knew who it was. We all knew who Mike McDaniel was, not for no reason, but because he was an S-tier hire for whoever got him as their offensive coordinator. And it's a little concerning that the Lions said, we don't like the fit. It's concerning.
It's extremely concerning. It just, especially when you look at their previous history of the guys that they've had to hire, and like you said with Ben Johnson, he'd been with Dan Campbell since his days in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a guy that he had been with for a long time, and we've gone this whole show without mentioning the biggest point that I didn't like yesterday was that this guy Drew Petzing is Ben Johnson's best friend.
So weird, dude. Do they want to beat Ben Johnson with his, is this an example of, keep your friends close and your enemies closer? Of bringing in someone who's so close to Ben Johnson that they feel like they can get inside his head? I don't know. That part to me is weird, and I can't shake it.
It's almost as weird as the big giant head. It's almost as bad as it, but I just can't.
He does have a big head.
Man, it's so big. Yeah, I mean, this is, and like I said, I don't like this situation, at all. I find it uncomfortable because the Lions have been good under Brad Holmes. Better than they've been maybe ever, but just for this stretch in a long time. And now there's this divide between the fans and Brad Holmes just because, and I think this is fair, Nick in our YouTube chat says it feels like he has the impression that he doesn't like the fans. That's why he says the things like we're good and does the opposite what the fans think. And when they ask him about the edge rusher, he's like, well, do the fans not realize that, no teams have two good edge rushers? Yeah,
almost talking to all the media in that day as if they were dumb.
Yeah, right. And he kind of gives that impression sometimes. But I don't want the fans to hate Brad Holmes because he's done a lot of good for the Lions, a ton of good. So that and now this hire in Drew Petzing, it's are some of the fans almost going to be rooting against him just to prove themselves right versus Brad Holmes, And I dislike that whole relationship.
Well, I agree that Brad Holmes deserves just as much credit as he does flack for all you got to take every move individually and then add them all up. I still think there's been more good than bad with Brad Holmes. The issue is there almost seems to be now some evidence to your point of well, why would we need to add another edge rusher, and talking to the media that day as if they were stupid. Does he see the criticism and almost be like, no, we're actually going to do it this way on purpose to prove everyone wrong? Are they still?
I sure hope not. That's some
Nick
Sirianni pettiness type stuff there.
And I don't want to go as far as to saying that that's what's happening. You could kind of make a case though. And in some departments, he's been right. For example, the edge rusher across from Hutchinson. They've kind of just got production out of that spot, whether it's James Houston or Al-Quadin Muhammad, even though they don't have the long-term solution there. Can they pull it off again? Pull another rabbit out of their butt? Maybe. I don't know. For the stuff like the Sione Vaki pick's insane to this day. We're going to take a special teams guy. I just think sometimes he hears the criticism and is like, we're going to do the opposite of what people want us to do for the sake of proving that we can do it our own way. It would be crazy if that's what he was actually doing, but
yeah,
it does feel like that in a way sometimes, right?
Yeah, it totally does.
That's my biggest concern. And the fact that the report said Dan Campbell really liked Mike McDaniel, but the Lions didn't. What? What do you mean?
Yeah, like the guy that's going to be working with him the most.
That guy liked him? So why is he not the coach? Someone tell me. I don't understand. 989-837-6125. This is the